Welcome, everybody, to Be Radical, Be Empathetic. My name is Anne Mosley, and I'm going to be facilitating the next hour with you, with your help and with your support. Be Radical, Be Empathetic is part of Country Navigator's commitment to awareness, knowledge, and skills development. They're the #1 cultural intelligence and inclusion training platform. And they really have those core skills of empathy at their heart of everything they do. So a little bit about me, just so you get a sense of who I am. My background crosses 3 different disciplines: creativity, therapeutic practice, and also core skills training. At the moment, my interests are very much in dealing with communication challenges, things that people meet and are struggling with in terms of their development, both professionally and personally. Now, a little bit about me and a tiny bit about Country Navigator. And what I'd like to find out is where everybody is coming from. So I'm going to actually launch a little poll now and just ask you to click on that and have a look at where you're coming from. Lots coming in from North America. Hello, Europe. Hello, China. And we've got some colleagues coming in from the Middle East and from Africa. That's fantastic. We're just going to keep it open a little bit longer and talk a little bit about, as we do, how this hour is going to go. There's going to be a lot of participation in the chat, and we're going to have an opportunity to see a very short video. So you'll also be flexing some of your own understanding of empathy and how it works in the workplace, how you access it, and how important it is. Okay, we've got a really large percentage coming in from Europe and the enlarged Europe. But it's great to see great China. Hello, China, India, Asia, Pacific. Hi, thank you so much for coming when I know in terms of just where we are time-wise, this is a challenging period. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to keep it open a little bit longer. But the first question I'm going to be asking you in a couple of minutes is about what is empathy. So as we're waiting for people to come in, I'd just like you to think a little bit on that. What is empathy? And I think what we'll do is we'll kick off with that question now. As we're looking, we've got a really good contribution of people. We've got 62 participants at the moment, and I know others will come in. So I'm going to click off on the poll and share the results so everyone can have a little look. And then what I'm going to ask you to do is, in the chat, what is empathy? Just a couple of words. Don't overthink it. Don't overanalyze it. Just a couple of words. What is empathy? Okay. We've got some really nice ones here. Wow. Okay. Exactly. We've got something coming up. Shakira, feel what others feel. Celine, something about listening with care, kindness to others. Anna, relate to others' feelings, experiences. Tony, we've got something about understanding what others are feeling. Okay, we've got care in others. We've got consoling others. Okay, there's some really nice things. Yeah, absolutely. Put yourself in someone else's shoes. Simona, thank you. Yes, that's really nice. Wear the other's shoes. wear the other shoes. That's a really beautiful thing that's coming out there from what we've got. Some more coming in. Okay, yeah, okay. Hans, thank you. Placing yourself in someone else's, non-judgmental, Tammy. Okay. Non-judgmental, wearing each other's shoes, feeling each other's emotions. Barbara, wear the shoes. Yeah, nice. Okay. So we've got some feelings there for us to start with. So what I'm going to do is we're going to have a little look at what's happening from Paul Ackman. So the ability to sense other people's emotions, coupled with the ability to imagine what someone else might be feeling. So that idea of feeling somebody else's emotions. So we're going to really look at two types of empathy, which some of you will be very conversant with. What we call affective empathy or emotional empathy, when you feel the feelings of someone else. Films all around the world engage us with this. Or when perhaps you're in a meeting and somebody else is irritated and you mirror back that irritation. Or, and we all do this in our personal lives, we are worried or stressed by somebody else's emotions. Maybe it's a child, a parent, a sibling, a partner. Emotional or affective empathy. But then we've got cognitive empathy, which is very much to do the ability to understand. That's something that came up in the chat. Other people's emotions, the causes of them, and how that impacts on them. And it's by and large cognitive empathy that we're going to be looking at. Because it's a quality that is essential now for psychological safety, effective collaboration, and also for good team working. So that's what we're going to really play with. So hold that idea while we move into looking at that in terms of leadership. So on the one end of this, we've got the feudal boss, and think about the people that you work with and how they communicate. Feudal boss, yeah, giving orders and reaping the rewards. Then in the middle, the imperial boss, the idea of I know best, and imposing their will on others. And then on the right hand of the screen, we've got the coach who inspires the team, who brings them together in a common purpose. And it's that modern approach in which the team leader recognizes the strengths and weaknesses of the individuals in their teams. But hey, we're human. These traits are dynamic. So I'm in a good mood today. So I'm a great team player. I collaborate and support brilliantly with my colleagues, and I perform well. But yesterday I wasn't in a great mood. So I sort of isolated myself. I didn't really support anybody, and I underdelivered. A leader, or in fact any good team player, is able to interpret the emotional strengths and weaknesses of everybody in the team, and in accordance with their, adjust their approach. It's adjusting the approach that we're looking at there. More importantly now than ever, the workplace is becoming much more digitalized. And it's vital that we put the human into the digital to maintain human contact and promote well-being. All of these need cognitive empathy, because effective or emotional empathy means that you can get dragged into the other person's emotion. Whereas with cognitive empathy, you're looking at being able to understand and interpret, but remain slightly distanced from the emotional cost. Okay, so we've got this with this idea of what cognitive empathy is. Let's have a look at some data. Okay, again, just have a look at this data, and I'd just like you to pick out anything in the chat that really calls to you. It's some pretty bad news. And the thing that I find interesting is the 42% at the top. These statistics were taken prior to COVID. So I think that's really powerful. So please put something in the chat. Let's have a look. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, 56, exhausted. Yes, Emma. Yeah. That statistic. Okay, so in terms of the sources, somebody's asked what the sources are of this, and we've got them from the Occupational Health Science Journal, and we've also got them from Georgetown. So these are statistics, data coming out in the last couple of years. Yeah. Problems with focus seemed lower than I thought. That's interesting, Zach. Yeah, okay. What, I'm just interested to know, Zach, what do you think it would have been like? Okay, Tammy, I would think after the pandemic today that, yeah, absolutely, it may well be, Tammy. It'd be really interesting to see. I mean, this sort of statistics are coming out all the time. Sadly, there is so much new data and to harvest. And I think we'll be seeing that over the next 3 to 5 years. So I think the conversation we're having today, and hopefully some of the work you will do in the future, is long overdue. So, okay, bad news. But, you know, we want to have a little look at some good news. Want some good news? So let's have a little look at some of the good news. Here's the good news for you. Okay, so again, anything that strikes you and anything that you would like to add to this, please, in the chat now. This is great, but we need to build on it because it's so screamingly obvious what we're looking at here. Anyone want to comment on this? Please do. Okay, so what we've got here. Thank you, Simona. Yes, I can only speak for myself. I perform much better with an empathetic leader. Very interesting to find out what it is what are they doing, how you would define that, Simona, and how you would encourage that in your colleagues. Okay, 76 say their leaders empathize, creates a great sense. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Claudia, agree about the pandemic. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Okay, yeah, you're being forced upon you by your leadership to keep employed. Okay, again, I bet these stats have dropped a lot depending on the country you're in and what has been forced upon you by your leadership to keep employed. Interesting comment, Tammy. Interesting comment. Really like to pull that out. What is it? What are the pressures? And certainly as we move through this discourse, getting you to get some ideas together to move this forward. Nice insights there. I think the 62% statistic is fascinating. What you are going to lose in terms of talent and creativity and voice, if you lose that, is extraordinary. It should be sung from every rooftop, I believe in this. So if we've got this and these statistics, what are they saying? So that just shows that if you've got an empathetic leader, you've got more inclusivity, there is more inspiration going around, you've got better teaming outcomes, and they're more productive. What's interesting is also that individuals with empathetic leaders tend to volunteer to do additional tasks, cover their colleagues, and take on additional responsibilities. So that extra added value to this is really powerful. Okay, so let's have a look at, if we know that this is the good news, why are we still lacking this idea of empathy? Why is it still not top of everybody's agenda and flowing through organizations? So that's your question. What are the barriers? 1 or 2 words in the chat, please. What are the barriers to this? Bad leaders, time to allocate, expectations, ignorance. Yeah. Okay, wow. Social judgments. Roderick, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Wow, Laura, yes, classic model of professionalism carries an expectation of impartiality and aloofness. Absolutely. Yep. And it's not fit for purpose. Personality, Livia, Olga, focus on completing the tasks. Leaders with no people skills, just task knowledge. Okay, and Roderick coming back with that $3 signs. Yeah, agree with Roderick, absolutely. Hans, egos, nice. Yeah, some really interesting thoughts there. Cognitive bias, yeah. Own challenges in difficult situations. Jana, yeah, nice. Okay, so teasing those up, let's have a look at just a few thoughts on that. And you've touched on some of these already in the comments in the chat. So fear of saying the wrong thing, of making things worse. Oh, no, and also that fear of somebody else's vulnerability. You don't want to disturb an already seemingly difficult situation. You had a conversation this year about the place of crying at work, of expressing that emotion of utter frustration that you get to, where, is it appropriate? I worked with a client where that was one of the first things we dealt with. Second, ignorance. Someone was saying this about this idea of professionalism. So it's a misguided belief that separating the personal and the professional is in some way a healthy space to inhabit, and where emotion is seen as a weakness. Impatience. Several of you commented on this, the workload. the boss driven, as the team is, by a particular project, series of projects, deadlines, changing deadlines. And yeah, sympathy. I'm really sorry for what you're going through. Now we need to get on with this. Not seeing any value in investing in that time to sit down and find out what is behind that change in behavior. Thing is that if we bury our head in the sands, as all of you know, that doesn't go away. It just eats into things and undermines everybody's well-being. Bad listening. Just don't see the emotional context. You just don't see it. And lack of curiosity. You're not looking for the causes, just not curious. I find that utterly astounding, but I know that it's part of something that at times we're all capable of doing. So we've got all these. We know what we want. We've looked at some of the barriers. And something that I think is very powerful with cognitive empathy is the aim is to understand the causes and impact of people's emotions. Therefore, it can be learned. I'd just like you all to think now, wherever you are, whether you consider yourself to be dispassionate and unemotional. Where do you sit? And do you know people who perhaps sit further along that description? Thing is that you could still learn how non-work issues impact work and performance, and you can support people and help your colleagues to maintain those outcomes. That's all possible because it's a learned skill. I think for a lot of people, I remember some years ago working with a young man who found it very difficult to link with that. But when I said we could sit down and work with that, his approach in his work, but also to what he then went on to do, changed significantly because he realized it wasn't necessarily something that you were innately born with, but it was something you could enhance, you could grow. So let's have a look at how that might happen. A great way of looking at emotions is because it's a function of culture, and therefore cultural intelligence is a great framework for this. So most of you will know this, but we're just going to move through it. First, we've got attitude. It's openness to different tolerances of expressions of emotions and reactions to them. So it's your attitude there. But then we have awareness, self-awareness. How you deal with emotions isn't necessarily the same as how somebody else does, but their approach is utterly, utterly valid. It's awareness of the individual's circumstances, attitude and awareness. And going into the third quarter, we have knowledge, learning about your colleagues, their circumstance, their situation, and their cultural preferences, and being able to grow that. And in growing that, we look at our fourth quarter and we look at skills, culturally informed skills. Really does help develop empathy. So let's hold on to that idea of skills and move into the next slide. So What have we got at the top? Curiosity. Curiosity is a powerful, powerful tool. The more you ask, the more you know. But I call this careful, caring curiosity. It's being wary of uncharacteristic behavior and being sensitive in how you probe. A friend of mine was talking to me the other day about being in a meeting, and it's quite a big meeting, and Claire, colleague, usually coming into meetings full of energy and focus and questions and challenge, came into this meeting and was obviously very withdrawn. Now, the team lead for there said, Claire, what is wrong with you? And Claire was sort of obviously taken aback and said, oh, I just didn't have a great night's sleep. She brushed it aside. So yeah, Guy asks a question, but the question is neither appropriate or sensitive at that point. My friend then just pinged Claire and asked, how are you? Is there anything I can do to support you? And they ended up having a chat. But it's to do with curiosity, careful, caring curiosity. Humility. Humility is powerful, and sometimes we don't talk about it, but it's to do with not talking about yourself or comparing yourself. Being humble, recognize that you can't solve everybody's problems, certainly the ones outside work. I call this park your ego. So humility, park your ego. I've got a great friend of mine, and I should have known better. I was having a frustrating time about a project recently, and I sort of asked, can I talk about this? And I got about 2 sentences in before they interrupted me with a great story about their own frustration they'd had a couple of weeks before and how they'd handled it. And there was no space for me. I should have known better. But that idea of sharing and comparing, non-judgment. Then we come into, I think for me, the core, the heart, is listening, is the ability to sit and focus and be present and park everything else that's going on for you, switching off any devices that will be detracting, listening to understand, not to reply. As I've said, coach, and I coach where there is difficult communication challenges. And I had a referral, a woman, senior management role, who was overwhelmed over a long period of time, just one thing on the top of another. She was referred, and she was really resistant to it. And this was during the first lockdown. And so it was online. And I asked her only a couple of questions in an hour long. She spoke for an hour. And I was full of questions. I was dying to affirm the fact that she was all right. I was also curious. I had to hold on to all of those. I asked 2 questions. She spoke for an hour. Afterwards, I got an email from her saying, thank you. I haven't been listened to like that for over a year. I'd like to work with you. The power of listening, of being present, cannot be overemphasized. Then we have trust. Trust, I think you all know, is something that we build over time. It isn't something that happens. We build it. It's a little like a garden. It needs watering and it needs feeding. And sometimes those will be in big shows of your values, illustrating your integrity. But it's also in the small things, the recognizing when a colleague is perhaps not faring too well and just inquiring. Maybe when a colleague has gone that extra mile for you, making sure you appreciate that. It's the little moments, the little water cooler moments that allow you to share who you are, because that is at the heart and center of trust. And finally, CQ. Be aware of the cultural challenges and differences that we have. How sharing vulnerability can be a really challenging thing. And it may take someone a long, long time to actually be able to deal with that. I, some years ago, worked with a fabulous actuary, very young woman. She was usually the only woman in the space. She was always the only woman of color. And she also happened to be very small. And she had suffered under a complete lack of respect for her knowledge, her understanding. And she didn't know how to push back, because culturally for her, challenging other people openly in a space was highly inappropriate. The thing that I had in common with her was that I was a woman, and I'd worked quite a lot in highly male environments, and we grew a repertoire together for her to push back. But it took time, and it was a growing process to be able to do that. So that's very quick, and something that I know that you will have your own ideas about. What I'd like to do now is I would like to put you all in the driving seat. So we've got two things that I'd like to do. I'm going to show you a very, very quick snippet. And I would like you to do two things. There'll be a poll, and the poll asks you to rate how empathetic you think Marta was on a scale of 1 to 10, and that's in the poll. And then also in the chat, thinking about those core skills: curiosity, humility, listening, trust, and CQ. Just thinking about what you think Marta could have leveraged and how in that space.
Ashwin has had a bad week. He forgot to send off some key data to the production team, and as a result, a key customer's order will be significantly delayed. When asked about it by a more junior team member, he yelled at them and denied responsibility. The next day, he went to lunch rather than attend the regular monthly sales meeting. He was supposed to update the meeting on new clients and report back on a key client acquisition project. The whole team has noticed that he's coming into work late each day and is usually the first to leave. Normally well turned out, his clothes are unpressed and he's looking messy. This is clearly not the normal Ashwin. Marta, the sales team leader, gave him a verbal warning on Monday for his mistake. She didn't listen to his excuses then. Given the week's performance since then, she is now considering involving HR and issuing a written warning.
Okay, clearly something is going on at home. Yeah. There was no safe space. Nice, Patricia. Okay. Okay, that would be really nice to think about think about. What does a safe space look like? Communication gap. Raj, yeah, communication gap. Interesting. Okay. Can you elaborate on that, Raj, a little bit? I'd be really interested. So Raj is talking about the communication gap. I would not like to work in this organization. Yeah, Anna, I think most of us are feeling like that. Okay. Ask about the sudden cause of the changes. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Interesting. Some really nice thoughts there. So let's move the conversation on a little bit here and have a little look about this. So what suggestions do you have? So I'd like you to spend, some time you can really think about this. Think about your workspace at the moment and your role within it. And then think about maybe 2 or 3 things that you feel could happen. And then if we can share those again in the chat, I'm going to actually stop talking for a few moments to give you guys time to actually think about this. And because this is a space in which we can start to share best practice. And I think that is key when we have so many voices from across so many countries here today. I'm smiling because a lot of these are chiming. So I know that you all have access to this and you can see this, but I'm just going to share some. Oh, okay. Remove roadblocks. Have informal engagements, a buddy system. Positive example, communication, sharing activities and success. Start with the quality of communication, active listening, put the problems on the table and discuss. Lovely. Vinesh, thank you. Ups and downs of any employee is natural. The need to embrace it with non-judgment. Based on trust, Claudia, based on trust, be ready to listen to each. Nice. Nice. Sarishna, okay. Maybe start each team meeting with an icebreaker. I'd be interested to know what you're using. Assuming, Carrie is talking about assuming is so dangerous and can be hurtful. Yeah. Carlo, have frequent informal exchanges. I love the idea of the informal and the frequency. Yeah. Simple conversations, Simona. Some simple conversations without any pressure. Yeah. Don't jump to conclusions. Don't be false. Alberto, don't be false. Yeah, fakery. One of my least favorite expressions is fake it till you make it. The shoes are coming in again. Absolutely. That's really a lovely idea of embodied practice, really understanding what somebody else is dealing with because you're actually in there. Oh, lovely thoughts from Laura about the whole self. Holistic. Thank you, Laura. The holistic approach. Yeah, Matthew, very nice. Thank you. Very much to do with, it's not just the manager, it's throughout the organization. The idea that you can lead from any point is a really powerful powerful thought there. So if we just have a look at, as we draw into the last 10 minutes, thinking about affirming what we really know, but being able to share that and hold that at the front of our being. Look for the causes behind behaviors. Show curiosity and listen attentively. Something that's really easy to do when you are bright-eyed and at the beginning of the week, perhaps not so much when you yourself are carrying stress and challenge. Invest time. I love this idea of investing in empathy. As I said earlier on, and as we know in our practice, if we take that time now, we help that process of escalation court at the beginning, so it doesn't get deeper and more entrenched as behavior that affects the individual, the group, the team, the organization. We don't bury our heads in the sand, we deal with things. And this idea of vulnerability, how it's shown, how it's not shown, and how we share our own, and how we sit with others' comfort or discomfort with that. And I think sitting with this, several of you have talked very eloquently about time and how important time is in this process. So as we draw to a close and we just open up for any Q&A, I'm just going to share how you can take this forward within the work that Country Navigator can offer, the platform can offer. So bear with me. There is no sound this time, so I think we're going to be okay on this one. But you never know. So I'm just going to share this screen. And this is what you'll find if you log in to Country Navigator. So you've got the ability to put your own pathway in there, and then looking at a whole series of different learnings, different ways in. So I do urge all of you to take some time at some point over the next day or so to have a look at this and really think about what you can build on and how you can take with you your colleagues, whether they are across, above or below in the dynamic. There is no place where empathy isn't of value, isn't vital, isn't necessary. Sometimes I think that the higher up an organization you travel, the less able you are to find those moments, those times to really engage in that practice and to check what is happening and how you are modeling empathy, particularly at those moments of challenge and change. And there is so much of it out there at the moment. So what I'm going to say now is, are there any questions? After we come offline, there'll be a poll, which I'm going to ask you to participate in, because it's always great to have feedback. This is my first time working with the team at Country Navigator, so it's an extraordinary journey for me. And I would be very interested to hear any thoughts, feedbacks, any questions, any points that you would like to raise now within the chat in the last 5 minutes or so before we say our farewells, our thank you, and I wish you goodbye. So please, anything in the chat about what you've seen to say. I love the fact that Carrie said the first bullet point is so important. This is the process and the behavior. Absolutely. I think something that came up for me that I'm going to share is that somebody said, well, why be radical? You know, what's radical about empathy? And I think it goes back to some of the comments we had in the chat, that so many generations, in terms of the work that we do, that work and personal life must be separated. You're not a professional unless you're doing it. And we are now saying that actually that's not fit for purpose. We bring to the workplace our emotions. And empathy is one of those, and that's why it's radical. We're bringing ourselves, we're bringing sometimes the messy bits, and we're trusting each other to be able to have the empathy to deal with that, to help us both professionally and personally thrive in and outside the workplace. Let's just have a little look. I think we have something coming up in the chat. Okay, pleasure. Thank you. It has been a real joy to work with this team. So I'd really love to thank the team, my producer, and a couple of the team, Alexandra and also Anna, and my lovely producer, who always remains delightfully anonymous. And thank you. So wherever you are in your day, I would wish you the very best for the rest of the week. And thank you for participating so warmly and openly in what I think is key for our safe spaces, our spaces of collaboration and connection. So thank you so much. Take care. Goodbye.